All right, let's talk Dallas Cowboys. I'm Nick, and this is our daily Cowboys show. We're really just, 36 hours or so away, depending on when you watch this video, from the Cowboys starting their Week 1 matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. Exciting time. Football is finally officially back. Regular season football, great stuff, and a lot of news when it comes to that matchup to get into. But as we like to on this channel, let's get things started with a little stat of the day, a little palate cleanser, if you will. And this was courtesy of Nick Harris at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. He's a really good reporter. I recommend you follow him on social media, Twitter, X, or whatever you use. And he highlighted the top 5 most expensive tickets for all games in the NFL this season, and he cited at Vivid Seats. The Cowboys lead the way with 3 of the top 5, including the top spot for Thursday night's game, Eagles-Cowboys opener in Philadelphia. And you can see the average sold price there. It's Dallas at Philly. It's Dallas at Las Vegas. Number 3 is the international game, which kind of makes sense, right? Those tend to get expensive just because of the appeal of it being international. The Dallas Cowboys at Detroit, and then the Green Bay Packers at Detroit, which I believe is Thanksgiving. So you can look at all of these ticket prices, and one thing is very clear, right? If you are the Dallas Cowboys on the road, you get a lot of attention. And this speaks to the power of the Cowboys. And a lot of people wonder, why are the Cowboys always in the news? And why are they always talking about it, right? Cam Newton famously said, like last year, why are we even talking about the Cowboys? This is why. Love them, hate them. They are the most powerful sports brand in America, and one of the most powerful. You could make an argument, the most powerful on the entire planet, right? That is the power of the Dallas Cowboys. And that is both a massive strength and a massive weakness, right? It creates an additional pressure environment. It's one of those reasons why I think the Cowboys were more than happy to pay Dak Prescott, for example, to be the quarterback on the most powerful sports brand on planet Earth. Ain't easy, right? It's not for the faint of heart. It's not something that a lot of human beings can do, even if an elite quarterback, even if you're an alpha guy that's loves the attention, loves the spotlight. That's a heck of a spotlight to be on you all of the time. Dak Prescott has shown himself more than capable of handling that. Again, his production in terms of raw in between the sidelines, what he's doing on the football field, hasn't quite matched his contract. He's been good, of course, but that's been a very big contract. But I think it's this attention, this focus, the power of the Dallas Cowboys brand, and how just much attention it will draw, even from going on the road, right? None of these games are in Dallas, right? These are expensive ticket seats for teams that want to see Dallas on the road. I think it speaks to the power of the Cowboys brand, and it's also sort of a point to why it matters about culture and fit and what the team looks like outward facing. If you have drama like the Micah Parsons situation, that can be hyper magnified 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Sometimes it's good to get rid of the drama. Whether you like the Parsons trade or not, Cowboys a lot simpler right now than where they were really the past few months. So I think it's a very interesting stat as we focus on, again, the power of the Cowboys brand. But with that, let's get into the news here. We've got 2 new leaders obviously emerging on the defensive line, courtesy of Patrick Walker at Voice of the Star, another great account to follow on social media. He posted, "Edge of tomorrow, Sam Williams and Dante Fowler are immediately thrust into leadership roles in the Cowboys' dream of pass rushers following the Micah Parsons trade, and each spoke about what it means to them for 2025. It's me versus me." He highlighted the full story. You can go check it out on DallasCowboys.com if you're interested. But I think the high level here is the most important part, and that is new leadership emerging. And I think that's been a theme with the Dallas Cowboys this entire offseason, right? We know, of course, DeMarcus Lawrence is gone. He's now with Seattle. Zach Martin retired. We know a lot of key pieces are no longer with the Cowboys. Even some veteran guys, short-term guys like Brandon Cooks, of course, is gone. You had guys like Eric Kendricks who were here for 1 year. He's gone. It's a different Cowboys team. It's a different Cowboys leadership group. And I think one of the things that we noticed when it came to some of these young guys stepping up, and even a guy like Trayvon Diggs, who had some question marks about his attitude, by all reports during training camp and by his work ethic and rehab, taking young guys under his wing, showing them the ropes. He's working hard to get ready as soon as possible in terms of rehabbing from his injury. Even Trayvon Diggs, who had some question marks about his leadership, at least up to this point under the new regime, has showcased better leadership traits, being a more, I'll say, professional. And we've seen that across the board. They brought in La'el Collins, a guy, again, for a camp body, just to be a professional offensive lineman, to work with some of the young offensive and defensive linemen, right? This is what the Cowboys have been this entire offseason. It's the message Schottenheimer has said. We're going to be held to a certain sort of standard. We're going to elevate new leadership. We're not going to rely on old guys, right? The players voted CeeDee Lamb a captain, and the coaching staff was very positive on that as well in terms of having Lamb be one of the captains, right? We're talking new leadership. It's a new era in Dallas. Oso Odigizua voted a captain, right? Again, a guy that a lot of people were like, Oso Odigizua, is he really a face of this guy? Is he really a star of this locker room? He certainly has emerged as such, and that's really important because, again, we're trying to put a clear delineation here between the Jason Garrett era and the Mike McCarthy era. There was a lot of holdovers between the two, and now it's about separating into a new era of being a more professional Dallas Cowboys, a more football-minded Dallas Cowboys. Whether you like the social media attention that certain players brought with the things they did or all the networks and all the attention, like I said, the Cowboys brand is extremely powerful. Whether you liked it, loved it, or didn't care, it was extra noise. It was something that I don't think affected the locker room, but it was something else to have to deal with and answer to all of the time. That has clearly gone away, and by the elevation of new leaders, I think we look at Williams here. I think specifically Dante Fowler. I think it's going to be a key part going forward. I think this Cowboys defensive line group, specifically their edge rushers, are they going to be anywhere remotely as good this season going forward as they were if they had Micah Parsons? Of course not even close. But you talk about maybe a better unit where it's maybe the whole could be as good as the sum of the parts, maybe even better the sum of the parts. I think there's a strong chance that could happen here. Again, these leaders have to step up. It looks like they are. We're going to have to see some young guys step up. Ezra Raku's got to grow up really fast. Williams has got to make some plays. Fowler's got to make some plays. Houston, they brought him on the roster. Again, strong preseason. Will that translate? We're going to have to see a lot of guys step up. But I think what we're seeing from the Cowboys right now is in terms of just leadership and guys taking on that mantle of being a veteran presence, a good example. We're seeing a lot of Cowboys, a lot of new Cowboys across the entire roster take up that position with all the moves Dallas has made this offseason, and it's something good to see. All right, next report here. This is courtesy again of Patrick Walker at Voice of the Star. I asked Brian Schottenheimer about his level of excitement for keeping things vanilla in the Cowboys preseason, knowing he's maintained the element of surprise to this point. Why would you want to give the Eagles opportunities to view those things? On to Thursday Night Football. Yeah, so one of the things I always found interesting is Schottenheimer and everyone in the Cowboys offense, and really the coaching staff too, were saying like, hey, listen, we're keeping things very vanilla, very basic. Most teams do. But I do think Schottenheimer here is doing a really smart move. Not necessarily keeping things vanilla, whether it's vanilla or not, but just by throwing a little seed of doubt, not just in Philadelphia's mind, but in other teams' mind, at least for the first couple months of the season. Because when you talk about, oh, we got everything's vanilla, we got stuff coming. If you're an opposition defensive coach, you're like, what the heck is coming, right? What's going on here? Are we going to get a lot of funky looks, or are they going to show everything against Philly? Is that only going to be 50%? Like, are they going to be completely different, completely new? Like, what is going on here? And just adding that little seed of doubt. It's a little gamesmanship, but it's the right approach to take, right? Because you want to, especially if you're a Dallas Cowboys team with a new offense, a new strategy, you want to use that to your advantage. It's a weakness in some regards, right? You got new players, new scheme. There's going to be some issues there, miscommunications, things like that are going to happen. But you also have to use that as a strength, right? You have to insert a little variability in the opposition's preparation. One of the things I hate about Mike McCarthy is with his offense, that very West Coast offense style that he really named it Texas Coast offense, all that kind of stuff. It was very predictable. Everyone knew what was coming, right? From 2023 and 2024, you talked about anyone watching the film. I love Kurt Warner used to break it down, the Hall of Fame quarterback, said, this is like basic stuff. There's nothing exciting here. There's nothing new here. There's nothing, anything at all that just inserts any question marks in the defense. The Cowboys basically, hey, are they able to win on talent or not? And that's exactly what they were under Mike McCarthy. In 24, they weren't. In 23, because of Dak Prescott having an MVP caliber season and CeeDee Lamb being absolutely outstanding, they were, right? I don't like that, sort of risk right there. And I think that's exactly what Schottenheimer is going to try and obfuscate. I love the gamesmanship here, but I love the approach in general. Like, listen, keep your cards close to the chest. Have some variability. Don't just roll out there and run basic stuff and just say, hey, listen, hopefully we're better. That's a bad strategy. I think that was a mistake by Mike McCarthy. I like the approach Schottenheimer and his staff is taking right here. All right, moving along here to Brandon Lohr had a good post, and I think it's very interesting. He said, I've seen the Cowboys go 12-5 with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence at defensive end, right? And of course, we saw that for 3 straight seasons. I've also seen them go 12-4 and 13-3 with a combo of Tyron Crawford, Jeremy Mincey, and Benson Mayowa as their leading sack guys. The 2025 group is an enigma right now. It's a very interesting point. When you go back to those 2014 and 2016 Cowboys, which I think he's kind of alluding to there, they were not known for being a great pass rushing team. What were the strength of those teams? Really the linebacking core. I mean, who was the coaching on that defense back then? Oh, yeah, that was Matt Eberflus. So there is a little, sort of history doesn't repeating itself, but it does rhyme, to quote Mark Twain here. And I think one of the things that's very interesting when it comes to Eberflus is how he's going to use this defensive talent. Now, look, I mean, you'd love to have an army of great pass rushers, and they do have a really good pass rushing defensive tackle in Odigizua. And Kenny Clark is very solid. And if you look at Ezra Raku, he's got potential. Williams has potential. Nealand is okay as a pass rusher, but I think he's acceptable. Sam Williams, I think, has, like I already mentioned, has potential. Dante Fowler is a good veteran. We'll have to see with Houston, right? There's enough guys there where I think they could piece together an acceptable pass rush, right? And I think that's what could happen. But I look at this Eberflus defense, and I look at that 2014, 2016 Cowboys, where they were much more of a team defense, right? They needed guys at all three levels to make plays and work together. And I think that's something that really fell apart over the past few seasons, where it was, as Bill Simmons likes to call it, the Patrick Ewing effect, where Micah Parsons and a couple stars, listen, they're going to win the game for us, or we're going to lose, right? And that's why DeMarvin Overshown's emergence was really good to see, because it was the first time really since 2022 that a playmaker not named Diggs, not named Micah Parsons, was willing to take over games and make plays and play with reckless abandon in his own right. And we've seen the Cowboys, a lot of Cowboys defenders, in my opinion, just say, hey, listen, we're going to let Micah be Micah, and if he wins, great. He's a great player. I think right now we're going to see a lot of accountability, and it goes back to the leadership thing, spread across the entire defense. Everybody's got to make plays. Everybody's got to work together. Everyone's got to do their job. Again, more of a team approach than an individual star-based approach. I like that. I think that's what wins in the long run. That's what the Eagles did with Vic Fangio last year. That's what the Chiefs have done. The Patriots have done. A lot of smart teams do that. Now, there's still issues with talent, of course, at a number of parts of this defense. I don't think they're going to be a great defense. I've been very clear about that. I'm just trying to get to, go from bad last year just a little bit below average. If they can make that leap, go from 30th to 20th, I'm on board 100%. And I think there's a good chance they make that kind of leap. But I think right now, in terms of stylistically, what they're trying to do is, again, a team-based approach, which, again, you talk about this coaching staff, making right decisions, the right moves to win, right? You talk about winning titles. People think winning titles, just to go on a little bit of a segue here, is just about collecting talent. Not the case. The 49ers have had incredible rosters. They've done a great job, just absolutely stacked. They made Super Bowl appearances, right? How many titles do they have? None. They hit the motherload, super stacked roster, 7th-round rookie quarterback on a scary cheap deal. How many titles do they have? None. The Buffalo Bills, uber talented. The Baltimore Ravens, uber talented. Even the Cincinnati Bengals, uber talented. How many titles? None. You have to have a team. You have to have a team-based approach. That is how you win in the National Football League. That's how you make deep playoff runs. We saw this with the Cowboys. They were so top-heavy and so focused on their stars, where if Dak Prescott has an off game, you lose. Doesn't matter. You're done. Right? Whereas other teams, Brady has an off game for the Patriots in the postseason, has a 3-pick game. They've won championship games. They won conference championship games where Brady's thrown 3 interceptions, right? They did in 07. They did it when he was with the Bucs in 2020, right? Your quarterback is an off game. You have guys that can step up. The Cowboys in the past, at 2014, 2016, 2018 teams, had that model. They kind of lost that over the past half decade. It looks like they're going back to that. And again, I think that's a good approach. All right, next report here. This is from Tommy Yerish. Getting to some injury news here. This is good stuff. Braun Scheinheimer says that Trayvon Diggs with his knee and Tyler Guyton also with his knee are trending in the right way. Unlike past years, the Cowboys will fully practice today, and it serves as the day to figure out what the team is thinking injury status-wise. Talking about practicing just a few days before the game. One of the things, and again, it's another vibe shift from Schottenheimer to from Mike McCarthy to Schottenheimer, was that Mike McCarthy was, again, a very players coach guy, and Schottenheimer is in a lot of respects too, but Mike McCarthy was like a veterans guy. Like, listen, man, if you're a veteran, I love you. We're going to go easy on the practice. We're going to go easy on the contact. We're going to keep it very, very simple, very easy work week. And he was big on that. And it had, of course, a lot of success in terms of regular season wins based on the talent level the Cowboys had. But I think at the same time, it hurt sort of the middle of the roster, the guys that, maybe competing for a spot, maybe guys that were trying to rehab. I felt like the Cowboys were always slow to return. And I think one of the reasons why is because they didn't have good data, right? They didn't practice very much and didn't practice very hard. So by the time they had a guy that were trying to rehab and they said, okay, we got 1 day of practice. How does he look? Yeah, 80, 90%. Okay, he doesn't play this week. Or maybe if you had 2 days of practice, you would see, okay, he was 75% day 1, 85% day 2. There's a strong chance he'll be 100% in 2 days for the game, right? And that's a different mindset. More data, more practicing. That's the benefit. You don't want to practice for the stars and for the veterans. I get that. But it's like I mentioned a second ago, this is a team here. You have to structure your systems and processes for the entire team, not just the top of the roster. And again, under Schottenheimer, they're taking an approach where it's the entire team. And again, it's just the right move. It's just good football, guys. All right, on the same vine here, Patrick Walker posted the injury report for after Tuesday's practice. You can see Perry and Winfrey there. It's at the bottom. Did not participate. Trayvon Diggs, Guyton, and Brevin Spanford are full participations. At this point, I think Guyton playing, I would get it 90-95%. Brevin Spanford about the same. I still think Trayvon Diggs about 80-85% because I think it may come down to conditioning in situations like that, and they don't want you don't want to pull a hamstring, right? You don't want to miss 4 weeks because you rush the guy back. But if his conditioning is there, I mean, maybe he plays some snaps. Maybe he doesn't start, but maybe he's sort of the third or fourth corner in those in those packages, when you get into, those nickel dime situations where you have a lot of defensive backs on the field. Maybe that's what works for Trayvon Diggs. But it seems like he has a really good chance of playing, which again, credit to him. People hated on Diggs, and I was very critical of him myself, but he's done a great job getting himself ready, being a leader. Again, this is the culture, guys. It's trending in the right direction. Will it result in wins and losses being good this season? Big question mark there. Talent has dropped dramatically as they built more towards the future, right? You trade away Micah Parsons to get more draft picks and more cap space. Obviously, your talent's going to drop. Makes sense, of course. For now, future, but hopefully being better. But I think in terms of culture and just what individual players are doing, really, really good stuff. All right, this next report is also courtesy of Patrick Walker. Confirmed the Cowboys will bring back the captain patches for 2025. We already talked about the captains yesterday. He highlighted them again on the screen there. I think this is one of those things, again, where you're just trying to differentiate yourself if you're Schottenheimer from prior regimes. I don't necessarily love or hate the idea of captain's patches, but I do love the idea of new leadership, of trying to send a message that, hey, listen, this is different, right? I think Mike McCarthy, when he took over the Cowboys, he said, listen, we're going to do the same kind of stuff and we'll be the same kind of team, same kind of structure, same kind of culture as Jason Garrett, but I'm going to tweak some things so we can maybe be a little bit better. Right, just change the margins, right? You look at a business, a guy takes over a company, a new CEO or something like that. He says, listen, it's a good business. I just want to cut costs a little here. I want to maximize revenue here. We'll get things going, right? We've seen this before in the past. Wade Phillips, when he took over from Bill Parcells, a very, very similar kind of concept. And look, that can result in wins, right? It can even improve you in the short term, but it's not a recipe for long-term success because you're not adapting your processes, you're not adapting your systems. Bill Parcells changed the systems, changed the processes, changed the culture in Dallas. Schottenheimer is following that again, exact same model. He's trying to clearly delineate, saying, listen, it is a new era. And I think this is the right approach. Captain's patches are not a big thing. I don't think it really matters. But in terms of just making a clear line of demarcation, this is a completely new team, a completely new era, a completely new mindset. We're not going, hey, all in, this is our year. We're going to win championship or bust. We're talking about building a methodical team, building a good culture. That's what Schottenheimer is doing. And again, I mentioned it like 500 times in this video. They're executing on it. Whatever you want to say about Schottenheimer up to this point, he's been very consistent. And whatever you want to say about the Cowboys leadership, they have backed every move Schottenheimer has made. It's early, right? We haven't played any games yet. I think there'll be a lot of, hand-wringing if/when the Cowboys lose some games, which of course they will. I think we look at this strategy overall, though, from Schottenheimer as being a good one. All right, this last report I think is pretty good. This is from Clarence Hill Jr. He says, according to a source, the action is happening between the Cowboys and left guard Tyler Smith on a contract extension. There's no deal yet, but negotiation is going on. Can they get to the finish line before Thursday is a question, but it can be done anytime this year. So the reason this isn't the headline is because Clarence Hill Jr., I'm putting in the penalty box right now because he was one of these reporters, and he's generally a good reporter with good sources, but he was one of these guys that said there's no way the Cowboys are trading Micah Parsons. All my sources say that isn't going to happen, and then the Cowboys traded Micah Parsons. So I'm going to put him towards the penalty box a little bit by mentioning him towards the end of the show, but if he proves right here, he'll get elevated back to the top. Listen, you talk about locking up Deron Bland. We talk about Turpin, Ferguson, Osa Digizua, right? The trend is clearly the Cowboys want to pay their guys. They always have, right? It's always who the Cowboys have been. It looks like Tyler Smith's going to be the next in the bunch. So the Cowboys are going to have basically their entire core group of guys locked down for the next 3 to 4 years. Smith, Turpin, Deron Bland, of course. You keep going down the list. Ferguson, you go down the list, and they're going to have all these guys locked down, plus additional cap space, plus 2 first-round picks, plus Kenny Clark, right? Again, is Micah Parsons worth all of that? Time will tell. But you can clearly see the Cowboys, the moment the Parsons deal happened, they're like, okay, we have clarity. We now can go after this plan, and they're executing on it. Locking up Deron Bland. Now it looks like they're going to lock up Tyler Smith. Good job once again by the Cowboys. Again, good solid football moves. There's this narrative in the media right now that the Cowboys are a football disaster. And whether what you thought of the Parsons deal or not, you could say maybe it wasn't so good or maybe it was, just depending on your personal opinion. But now that is behind us and you take the Parsons thing and put it to the side, every move they made since they hired Schottenheimer has just been a really good football-minded approach, really solid. We covered the Deron Bland deal yesterday, for example. Cowboys, very quietly, no one's talking about it, making good long-term moves. Again, for 2025 success, remains to be seen. I've got some concerns, but I think long-term trajectory is very solid for the Cowboys. All right, let's get into the comments here. Let me go full screen for you guys. Just a reminder for anyone, I'm sure regular viewers hear this all the time, but I will always prioritize member comments. I will get to every member comment first before I get to non-member comments. So if you want to make sure you get a shout out, and I will always answer and reply to every single member comment, make sure you become a member. It supports me. It's a big help. I'd really appreciate it if you could. There's a link in the description box below. Let's get into our member comment from yesterday's video right here. This is courtesy of David Dobbins, 5887, who's been a good member for commenting for a while. He commented talking about the Cowboys and, of course, the Parsons trade, or Dallas can just keep and use those 2 additional picks. Everyone downplaying these picks as mid-20s. Well, the last 2 pick 25s were Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle 2024, and Jackson Dart in 2025. 26 after Dart was James Pierce Jr., the edge from the Tennessee Volunteers. I wouldn't mind these type of players on the team right now, but in addition over the next 2, heck yeah. You know, that's a great point, right? Imagine if the Dallas Cowboys have their 2 first-round draft picks and they have an edge like James Pierce Jr., and let's say they go out and draft, you know, a stud running back with one of those 2 first-round picks, whatever it may be, right? And suddenly you look at this Cowboys roster and say, okay, we traded Micah Parsons for a solid edge who's maybe 80% of them. We now have a great running back. I'm just throwing that running back as an example. Pick another position. And we have all this cap space, and we also have our other 2 first-round picks. You would sit there and say, that's a better team, right? At edge, they may not be quite as good, but that's a better team. That's a cheaper team. That's a more balanced team. And that's the operative word used today. Team. Is it a better team? Are the Cowboys a better team with everything they've made? I think in terms of wins and losses, 2025, maybe not so much, but 2026, 2027, 2028, looks like it's trending that way, guys. And look, if they could still do well in 2025. I'm not saying they're going to do garbage. I mean, they could go 12-5. They could go 5-12. I'm predicting about 8-9, 9-8, depending how things shake out. But I think the long-term trajectory, again, this is the big point before I get to the other comments. The Cowboys, for the first time since maybe 2000 and at least since 2012, 2013, but you know, you can maybe make an argument since 2003, 2004. The Cowboys are thinking long-term, right? When the Cowboys won Super Bowls, Jimmy Johnson, Tom Landry, long-term approach for the first time in a very long time, at least a decade, maybe 2. The Cowboys are taking a long-term approach, and I'm happy to see it. All right, let's get into other comments. This next one is from Brady Simmons, 84. The explanation about having players that are hyper-specialized against the run or the pass can also sort of be applied to the tight end position. When you have a tight end that's not good at run blocking, what is a good route runner, good at catching passes, and you have another tight end who's a good run blocker, it tends to create predictable trends. The goal is to have people that can do both. Exactly. This is a perfect comment. Brady Simmons, 84, exactly. Under Mike McCarthy, and it goes back a little farther than this, the Cowboys were not multiple. They were you could look at their schemes and strategies, but their personnel, right? Micah Parsons was a pass rushing guy primarily, right? They have a lot of edge rushers were pass rushing guys. They had a safety playing linebacker in Dan Quinn's defense, of which I know Vander Esch got hurt, but to me, I was just like, how does that happen, guys? And it became so hyper predictable that in big games against talented teams, right, they would get killed. We saw this in 23 and 24, right? Just because when you know a team has a massive mismatch deficiency, hey, they've got pass rushers on the field. They can't stop the run. They get a safety playing linebacker. Well, let's just run right at them and then play action off of that. You become basically a sitting duck. Offensively, same thing, right? And it's one of those things that really frustrated me about McCarthy and Dan Quinn going back to 2023, even in some spots in 2022. I think one of the things that really kind of hurt Dak Prescott with 2022 with the interceptions is that there was sort of that battle between McCarthy and Kellen Moore. I think that battle made them a little bit more predictable. Kellen Moore, like him or hate him, he wanted to be a little bit more variable about it. I think sometimes a little too crazy for my book, but Mike McCarthy kind of dialed him back more than he should have, and it created some opportunities for teams to keep the game close in some situations. And then the Cowboys' talent, just because they were so good in 22, just completely overwhelmed the opposition in a lot of those games. Remember that, I think, Colts Sunday night game. They scored like 33 points in the fourth quarter. That was just a high level of talent. That can work to a point, but eventually the other teams are going to catch up, and it's not going to be your best year in terms of talent. You got to have schemes. You got to have unpredictable in terms of versatility. You got to be able to throw out guys that can do everything. And last couple of years, the Cowboys have a lot of guys who are super specialized and incredibly gifted at just one or two things, and it makes them super predictable, and it was a real problem that I think has been solved in a big way. Great comment here. Good insight here from Brady Simmons, 84. Let's see here. This is from Gary Owens, 3687. Got to have a good offensive line, defensive line, quarterback, and ability to run the ball okay. You're going to win a lot. I named a team, even though I didn't say their name, Philadelphia Eagles. Now, don't know what Revel was before, but I do know Overshown, and he won't be what he was until next year, and probably the same with Revel. Yeah, I agree with that. I think, but again, it's kind of my point. It's like 2026. If you look at the Cowboys, let's say 2027. Let's go 2 years out in the future. You would have Revel, who's now in year 3, right? You have Deron Blaine, who's a veteran. Maybe Diggs is still around. Now you have a really good cornerback room. You have Overshown, who's recovered, and he's doing great. He's killing it. You have the best linebacker core in the NFL, right? You've got Ezra Raku, in year 3 at that point. You've got Sam Williams, right? He's become a player. Nealon's a vet. You've added a few other rookies with these draft picks on the defensive line, right? Wow, suddenly looking good. Offensive line has matured. Guyton, Beebe, Tyler Smith is now the leader, right? You look at Booker's got experience. You've got another stud running back. Jaden Blue has matured. Dak Prescott, Pickens, and Lamb have played together for a few years now with Ferguson. You start seeing these pieces come together. Again, long-term thinking. 2025, I'm hoping for the best, but I think the future, the trajectory of the team for the future is really good. All right, this next comment is, let's see here. This is from Art Vanderlei, 6974. Micah could have been paid by the Cowboys and chose not to take their money. People acting like the Cowboys only offered him 30 to 35 million. They would have made Parsons the highest paid defensive player, regardless of whether he took their offer or not. It's interesting, right? Because I don't know if anyone saw this or not. I don't want to talk about it too much, but Micah Parsons' agent, David Mulligetta, the infamous Mulligetta, went on ESPN on one of the talk shows today, and yesterday, I remember being surprised, right? Because after the trade and the deal was announced, here's how it normally works, right? Both teams have a press conference, they announce the trade, everyone says great things about each other, excited for the future, and then you move on, right? That's generally how it works. But the agent then going days later and having to go on ESPN and try and explain the situation, to me, that's a sign I was like, whoa, right? There is real concern with the agent, with Parsons, or with both, that they don't look nearly as good as they think they did, right? And I think that's really what a lot of people have realized here, that aren't just, 5-second media headline readers and don't think for 2 seconds, right? A lot of people in the media they don't think, right? That's just a fact. We all know this. We can read and watch what happens, and you're like, yeah, we see someone on TV, and you're like, yeah, man, you're not thinking. You don't have a lot of brain cells going on. Maybe good on TV, but not a lot of brain waves. But when you look at what happened now, you can take a step back and say, yeah, Parsons didn't come off very good here. His agent definitely didn't come off very good here. Not that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys came off very well either, but there is some interesting dynamics here at play in the fact that, the agent had to go after the fact, after everybody is happy, and try and explain himself. There's a good rule of thumb. If you're explaining, you're losing. I thought that was very interesting, and I think you bring up a great point here that, look, the Micah Parsons, as much as he says he wants to be a Cowboy and he always wanted to be a Cowboy, there was a lot of chances he could have been a Cowboy forever, and he chose not to take them. His attitude did not indicate he wanted to be a Cowboy. And the fact that the agent feels like he has to explain it, I don't know. There's something weird going on there. I don't want to focus on that too much because, that's the past. But there's something funky there happening with Parsons and his agent. I don't know what's going to happen there. Well, something, it doesn't really matter anymore. He's in Green Bay. But very, very interesting there. Devoila, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Jones 2978 commented, the Cowboys should have an active rotation of their edge rushers going forward. Again, team, right? It's not all on Parsons. It's not all on DeMarcus Lawrence when he was there. Team. Love the team. Mighty Pepino 76 commented, the point is not that we lost Parsons, it's the fact that the front office did their jobs right. We could have paid a lot less for Dak, CD, and Micah. They should have contracts done much sooner or traded them at the right time. So there's always this narrative, and I disagree with this, that you need to do things sooner. Trade sooner, sign them sooner. You save money if you do that. It's one of those things where you save raw dollars, but it's the dollars, it's a ratio of salary cap, right? It's nothing to do, like whether a player makes $500 million or $5 million, it's all in the context of the salary cap. So if you pay a player 15% of the cap in 2023 and 15% of the cap in 2025, it's the same net effect. People that sit there and say, look, you pay earlier, you save money. Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's how much of the salary cap did you spend, right? And one of the things that's also very interesting with the Micah Parsons trade in the situation there, if they would have traded, people say if they would have traded him pre-draft, maybe the Cowboys could have gotten even more from him. Not likely, right? You have to remember the Packers are in a sort of championship or bust mode, and they did not address their pass rush, right? And they were hoping they had some young guys hoping to step up on their end. If somebody steps up and would have been there for the Packers, and the Packers have been really excited, maybe they wouldn't have traded for Parsons, right? And the Cowboys could be dealing with a holdout right now and not getting anything in return, right? There's a lot of variables that we don't know how things could have happened. Now, one thing I will say with the Cowboys with the Parsons situation is that the length of this thing was way too long, right? It did take too long of these debates and negotiations. But to be fair, I think there was a lot of issues between the agent and Jerry Jones that kind of has played out behind the scenes. I think right now, when you look at the timing of it, and people say, oh, they should have paid earlier or traded him earlier, I think that's a little bit of a falsity, right? I think if you look at what teams do, it has to be done in the context of the salary cap. And to be totally honest, and I hate to play this game as well, there's a lot of people that said, listen, the 2025 draft, not very good, right? 2026, 27, those draft classes, a lot deeper. Smart teams like the Los Angeles Rams were trying to trade out of the back half of the first round. Why? Because the talent dropped off dramatically, right? You had teams like the Detroit Lions basically taking second round guys, run stuffing defensive tackles that that aren't really first round talent, but the Lions are like, listen, we got to take somebody here. So, and nothing against Tyleik Williams, their first round pick. I think he's a good player, but he's not a traditional first round kind of pick. The back half of the first round in 2025, not so good. I'd rather have the Packers picks in the back half of the first round the following seasons in a much, much deeper draft. All right. This is from Dallas Cowboy 2221. Commented, again, with all due respect, Dallas wanted to sign Micah. I agree. Micah asked to be traded. True. Dallas said no. Then Dallas traded Micah. The trade had nothing to do with Shoddy's culture or run defense. Dallas couldn't come to an agreement, so they traded the player full stop. The fact that they had the media repeating obvious falsehoods reminds me of another billionaire. The fact that they have the media repeating obvious falsehoods. I don't think the Cowboys control the media. The media hates the Cowboys. They love talking about the Cowboys. But again, this is this weird narrative. And again, with all due respect to the comment here, that if you follow the media at all, they will destroy. They destroy Jerry Jones. Certainly ESPN and Fox Sports, they obliterate him. Local media, you look at 105.3, right, in Dallas, about 2/3 of the people just despise Jerry Jones. Look at Cowboys, like these blog sites and these websites, like they're very, very negative of Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. So people say, oh, like the Cowboys control the media. Now, the Cowboys get a lot of eyeballs, so people talk about Dallas. Jerry Jones has no control of the media. If he does, he's the worst media control guy of all time because they all hate him and tell him how much he sucks all of the time. He's a great marketer. I mean, his shows do extremely well, like the documentary. But this narrative that the Cowboys control the media and that Jerry Jones, after the fact, is turning the wheels to get people on his side, listen, watch it. Like, they hate Jerry Jones. Everyone's calling him an idiot every 5 seconds. Like, the one guy who says, maybe this was an okay trade gets, like, yelled at as, like, a stupid person. Whether you think it's a good trade or not, or a good move or not, I mean, that's besides the point. The notion here that the Cowboys control the media, I mean, and that Jerry Jones, is behind the scenes talking to Fox execs and ESPN execs to change narratives and stuff. That's false. That's observably false. So I disagree with your comment there. This is a comment from LXM4DM4 in XL. So I'm going to say probably that's LX Madman Stylized XL. Comment talking about Kenny Clark. He says he's 96, not 95. I thought he changed his number to 95. So give me a fact check on that. If I am wrong, I will correct it. But I thought he changed it. He showed up as 96 originally and is now 95. So give me a fact check on that. It's possible I'm wrong there when it comes to Kenny Clark. All right, this is from BMR Collects. Let's finish this off right here. The Bland extension was great, and I love they got it done right after the, quote, super greedy, unquote, Parsons was traded. As great as Parsons can be, he was being way too greedy in his contract demands, and I'm glad they traded him. Now I'd like them to extend Tyler Smith, but they have a little more time on him since they picked up his 5th-year option. It is one of those things that if you have and I don't want to say Parsons is necessarily greedy, right? I mean, look, 40 versus 47.5 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. And when you factor endorsement and brand value of being a Cowboy versus a Packer, I think 40 million in Dallas is worth more than 47 in Green Bay. That's just my opinion, right? Maybe some financial people out there can correct me, right? It's just my, unexpert opinion. But I think you bring up a great point here is that having Parsons gone, it does free them up for other things. And that's one of the things anyone who's worked in corporate America, worked for a business, or even if it's a small business, right? When you have something that gets everybody's attention from the top of the company to the middle management to the individual people, and all eyes are on that and everyone's focused on that, whenever that is resolved one way or the other, positively or negatively, it frees everyone up and suddenly a lot of things start getting done. That's why a lot of organizations, they like to farm out, right? They like to subcontract things like legal, right? General counsel, accounting, right? Complex, nitnoid, in the weeds problems that are very, very important, but if they spend it on themselves, they spend all the time on that themselves, it'll suck up all their time and effort. So they sit there and say, listen, we'll sub this out to somebody else. We'll hire an accounting firm, we'll hire a legal firm, we'll hire an HR firm, whatever, hire a marketing firm, whatever. We'll let them do that. We'll focus on other things and free up our resources. Micah Parsons, I think, was holding up a lot of resources, holding up a lot of attention. Now that he's gone, the Cowboys are freed up to do other things. Already knocked out the Bland deal. Tyler Smith seems next. Obviously, we look at the culture change and things like that. I'm expecting more things to happen here for the Cowboys going forward. Again, momentum behind Dallas right now in terms of what they're doing with their current players. Will it result in more wins or losses? Remains to be seen. I know I've thrown that caveat out there a bunch, but I think, again, generally the trend is in the Cowboys' favor. All right, that's all the time I have for today. Again, if you want to make sure your comments get called out, become a member. There's a link in the description box below. I'll throw one more plug in there for you guys. But look, all right, obviously, we're getting closer and closer to week 1. Tomorrow, we will preview the game along with the latest news. I think there's a lot of interesting tidbits behind the scenes. We're getting some leaks and things I want to corroborate before I get too deep into it tomorrow. But there's definitely going to be a lot of good stuff. And football will be back tomorrow evening. Excited to see the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, Pickens, Prescott, the whole bunch getting together. Rookies, Booker, Ezeraku, Jaden Blue getting some touches. Exciting time of year. Can't wait for that. But until tomorrow, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection.